Hey there, Citizens Palo here, and welcome back. It's time for another tour of duty, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Aegis Sabre. This girl behind me right here. Well, it'd be pretty odd if I was talking about a different ship from this one behind me. I don't know why I have to say that, but yeah, this is the Aegis Sabre. Now, before I turn around, let's talk a little bit about it. So what we're looking at here is the Comet. The Comet is not a variant of the Aegis Sabre. There is a variant called the Sabre Raven, where it is a saber that's been modified to do something slightly different. Basically, they take away 2 hard points and they put in an EMP generator. It does run on a different chassis. Now, the Sabre Raven, that's only obtainable via buying an Optane hard drive. So, like the 600, 800, maybe they've come down in price. But when they first came out, they were like $800 for an Optane hard drive. That was the only way you could get that. What a Sabre Comet is, now we'll come back in here and we'll turn around, you'll actually see it's called a Sabre Comet. I think it was CitizenCon 2016. Don't quote me on that year. Basically, what they did was they did 3 quote-unquote variants of different ships. The Sabre, the Gladius, and the Hornet. So there was the Wildfire for the Hornet, and the Gladius was... I forget what the Gladius was called, but they're the same chassis. There's no different components or anything. The only thing different is the livery skin on them, and then the default weapon loadout that they come with. But mechanically, it's the exact same ship. So when you see Comet here, but if you go over to the storefront and you only see Sabre, there's nothing different there. It's just the default loadout on the ship has changed. There's no... Unlike, say, the Freelancer, where there's different components within for like the exploration model or whatever, none of that's going on here. Okay, that out of the way, let's talk about this ship a little bit. The Sabre is sort of the top dog fighter within the Aegis family. It's going to be classified or put together and compared to the Super Hornet and the Glaive for the most part, the high-end fighters, though they are classified as medium fighters more so than heavy fighters. Heavy fighters, there's actually... it flew away. There had been one right there. The Vanguard Warden is considered a heavy fighter. I think the Banu Defender might also be a heavy fighter. We'll see that now. It's been pushed back a little bit, but we'll see that at some point. I'm not sure if that's a medium or heavy fighter also, but you know, this is considered... Actually, this ship in particular isn't even considered a medium fighter. It's considered a stealth fighter. But we'll talk about the stealth mechanics a little bit more here in a moment. Like I said, though, this is kind of Aegis's top dog going up against Super Hornet, that and the Glaive, and so that's mainly what we're going to be comparing it to today. In terms of armament and firepower, it has 4 size 3 hardpoints, 2 under each wing, so we got one here, then similarly on the other side. It also has a missile bay underneath. We can't really see it as it's behind a closed door, but this right here opens up. You'll see it once we get flying. I'll show it to you. So there is a missile bay in there. Whoops. Wrong key. Stand back up. There we go. Yeah, so you have 4 size 3 hardpoints. Now, this one here, the Comet variant, its loadout comes with these Omniski 4s, 3s, Omniski 3 laser cannons. Auto cannons is what they are. So they're laser autos. Let's just go ahead and open up the Moby Glass and show you exactly so I don't try to remember everything that it has off the top of my head. Weaponry. Omniski 4 laser autocannon. So of course the size 3s are Omniski 4s for raisins. Yes, that I said raisins. That was yeah, anyway. And then you have the Pyroburst Scattergun. So 2 Omniskis, 2 Pyroburst Scatterguns. These Pyrobursts are a little unique, actually. If we look at him over here. So these are, I believe, the only weapon currently in game that is quote-unquote plasma-based. We have a lot of energy-based, we have a lot of ballistics-based, we also have disruptions-based, but in terms of like ammunition being called plasma, I think these are the only ones here in game, and they only come, I think, in this size 3 model too. They're a little odd. In terms of damage, they're in between. They're not quite as good as a pure ballistic one, but they're also not as bad as a pure energy one. However, unlike, say, is it the Dominance? I think it's the Dominance, which are the energy ones. Unlike the Dominance, it does have an ammo consumption. There's ammo to it. So you get a little bit better output, but with energy-based, or a little bit better damage, but with ballistic type drawback of having a limited ammo count. Energy is, or heat consumption is okay. Their damage is all right. They're all around pretty good. In fact, pulling these Omniskis off and going with 4 of these is not a bad loadout for this thing, though there is a better loadout just going with, there are the Predator ballistic cannons. If you're just looking for raw DPS output, it's ballistic scatterguns. I think they're Predator, that they're called. We can't change them here because of that. As we work our way around the back here, for reference, the base Sabre comes with 4 Panther repeaters. So you get 4 size 3 Panther repeaters on it. We'll work our way around back here. It does have sloped wings. So you see here, this is like an F-14 or whatever, where the wings are retracted back in. Now, unlike an F-14, they kind of work in opposite. When you are up and running around and maneuvering, your wings are forward, and then they slope back for landing. And basically, they're just tethered to your landing gear. So when you put your landing gear down, they retract back, basically, so you can get into like a smaller landing spot or whatever. And then when you're up and maneuvering around, they move forward. It's fine. They work. And then go ahead and there's the engines. More engines, and everything is the same on the other side. It's a sleek, good-looking craft. I think, this, in my opinion, resembles a lot of the F-22, the modern-day advanced fighter jet, especially with this under-bay missile rack, in the fact that they're enclosed in. That's something that the F-22 does, or the F-22, because it is a stealthier fighter jet. Its missiles are located internally in payloads, and then when it's ready to fire them, the payload opens up and they launch out, just so they're not an extra radar target or extra item for radar to bounce off of. Let's go ahead and we'll climb into the pilot seat. Do a quick third person around. I think she's a good looking craft, and I kind of like this this digital camo that they have on here. I'm not a huge fan of the big UEE blue symbol on the wings, but like the blue highlights I think look good with the digital camo. I just kind of don't like that circle on the wings for the most part, but other than that, I think it looks pretty darn sharp. The engines definitely give it a look of a fast and maneuverable ship, which this absolutely is. We'll show you that here in a moment. Let's go ahead and we will just do power on. And if we come back out here with the power on, you'll see the lights have come up. There's a nice little red light there. But what we can also see is the missile bay has opened up underneath here. So there's the missiles. 4 size 3s in this. I think you could then do 6 size 2s or 8 size 1s. You could swap that out if you wanted to. Hey, Caterpillar. Don't see too many of them around. There it is. Let's go ahead and we'll bring the engines online. Uh-oh, I don't like the look of that. You see our joystick? Something tells me we're going to take off hard left. There we go. Now we're back to the middle. Okay, let's bring her up nice and slow. We're not quite centered. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. The downward thrusters. Give it a little bit of forward. Let's go ahead and we will raise the landing gear. You'll see the wings come forward. Like so. It's a good looking ship, I think. So what I want to do is I just want to find where's the sun. Sun should be over there, so let's go this way. And then our belly should be towards the sun, so now you can clearly see the missile bay and the doors that open up. Hopefully at some point in the future, we'll get to the point where the missile bay isn't just open or closed, but it actually just stays closed until you've locked on with the missile, and then when you hold down the trigger to fire the missile, that's when it'll open up and launch them. I think that would be a really cool effect to have. Oh, something else I forgot to show. So watch when I retract the landing gear, or put the landing gear out here. Watch the front cannons. So they actually slide back in. That way they're not in the way of the pilot's seat getting in and out. This was an effect I didn't actually notice until I started recording this. This is actually like my 4th time recording this ship, but they slide forward and up. That's a nice effect that I had missed before. In terms of handling, maneuverability, and all that, this ship is top-notch. It really is. Let's come to a stop here. The only thing that really outclasses this completely is going to be your interceptor ships, and that makes sense. Your M50 and the MISC Razor. I think there's another racing slash intercept ship I'm not thinking of. It's not, there is a 300 series one. I'm not sure how fast that one is. But anyway, dead stop. We'll just go throttle, no afterburners. It's going to bring us up to 275, which is competitive with all the light fighters currently out there. You know, they're in that 275 to 290 range. So you're not quite the top speed type thing, but you're definitely within there. In terms of handling, let's get into the rings here around the station. And keep in mind, I'm doing this with keyboard and mouse right now. So I don't have the best three degrees of movement. You know, I don't have the best of that. But this thing here, it handles really well. Again, it's not going to be the best handling ship in the game, but you're going to be able to come with this thing and you'll be able to handle it well enough to keep up with basically any of the light fighters that you need to. It has great deceleration and acceleration, allowing you to really turn it on a dime, especially when you have dual joystick hooked up, or HOTAS, and if your HOTAS has an extra joystick, thumbstick on it, it just handles beautifully. Not quite as good as a Gladius, not quite as good as an Arrow, but not far from it. It's right there with it in terms of quality of performance. And that's going to be a running theme throughout this ship. In terms of super cruise speed, of course we're going to get screwed up when we exit the armistice zone here, so let's do that, and then we'll go. It's going to take us up to 1235, which is again a very, come on. Let me go all the way up to super cruise game. So you get up to about 900 pretty quick, and then it does taper off, but that's not uncommon. And you'll top out at 1235, which again is a competitive super cruise speed. Something else, before we go too much farther, let's talk a little bit about stealth. Right now, the stealth mechanic in-game, while there's elements implemented, if we look on the left here, I can't really show it, but underneath the ship icon, you see it says EM and IR, but we can also see it down here. We have heat, EM, and IR. And our numbers have kind of stabilized in right now. So these are kind of the signals that your ship are outputting, and depending on the target, the other ship's computer and background noise, the higher these numbers, the further away they can detect you and everything. The reason I say it's not fully implemented is I don't think a lot of the components are in yet that do this. I'll take and I'll overlay a little bit of footage here of the Super Hornet in the exact same conditions. We're just cruising along at Super Cruise in the Super Hornet, and you'll notice that the EM here in the Sabre is better, but the IR is actually worse. And that's just normal operating conditions. Just to be known, like, this is everything just running at full max. What you can do, if we zoom in here on this panel, so the top bar here, this is our max slider of our power plant. If we take this, we can slide this down. We're adjusting our power plant. Now, as we adjust it down right now, nothing's happening because we're only actually using roughly 26% of our power plant. We won't actually start losing anything until we get down here, and then we start pushing the power plant down. We start restricting things down as we bring it back up, and then the power plant can do its thing again. But what we could do is we can come in here in items, and we scroll through here. We could turn off some things. Mainly, we're going to turn off our shields. And yes, there are 3 shields. It's something we will talk about again in a very brief moment. Now, you'll notice that our power plant is only drawing 13% compared to 26%, and our EM and IR numbers have dropped off a lot. They've dropped off significantly. So there are elements to the stealth system working. I just don't think the stealth is completely balanced, at least not for normal operation yet. So while this is quote-unquote a stealth fighter, unless you're willing to really kill your shields and everything, putting yourself at risk of just being wrecked, it's not, at least so far in my testing, it's not super stealthy compared to other ships. If we do come back in here again, bring it back on. So one of the things that really sets the Sabre apart from all the other fighters within the game, and we're talking single-seater fighters here, we're not talking Vanguard, Cutlass, anything up. We're talking the Sabre, Super Hornet. I guess the Super Hornet's not a single-seater fighter, it's a 2-seater fighter. But the Super Hornet, the Glaive, Gladius, Arrow, Buccaneer, you get the idea. The Sabre is the only one of these with 3 shield generators. These are the shimmer generators right here. So we're going to turn 2 of those on just because I kind of want to test something while we're doing this. I want to see what my IR is with only 2 of the shield generators on rather than 3. You will notice our numbers they peak really high as the shields are coming up. They draw a lot more power from the power plant. We're drawing like 1600 watts now compared to our stable 1000 before. So we'll let that draw and then we'll come back down. What was I getting at? So yeah, the Sabre does have like roughly on paper 33 to 66% more shields than any of the other fighters. The Super Hornet is kind of another odd one. The Super Hornet and regular Hornet, they both have 2 size 1 shield generators. And then for the most part, your Gladius, your Buccaneer, and all of those, they all have 1 size 1 shield generator. We can also see this if we open this up here, comment here, Sabre comment, we already have it selected, systems. You can see here 3 shield generators on this. And let's see, so now that everything's kind of stabilized out, whoops. Let it calm down. There we go. We look back in here. So now our IR is definitely down. So one of the things that absolutely does take effect is, and this is something I'm doing for a stealth video that I'm trying to put together, your shield generators generate a lot of IR. So by cutting off our shield generator, we went from, what was it, 5,300, 5,600 down to 4,300. And if we turn another one off, let's see here. So power that one off, go back over. And that number is continuing to drop. So you definitely can make this ship fairly stealthy. Just right now, the mechanics and everything aren't fully balanced out for a super stealthy ship. So, in the future, buying this ship for the fact that it's stealthy might be very good. Right now, I'm not sure that would be the best route, but it is something to consider later on down the line as balance and mechanics get improved and edited on and all that stuff. This should get a little bit better. We can also take in, we can reduce our shield overall, which is, that should drop our IR even more. Maybe not. Maybe that IR is more the shield generator just being active, regardless if it's putting out full or half. Take that back up. Okay, so we're now going to cut to some different pieces together. Combat, I'm just going to talk about the ship overall for a couple of minutes and we'll go from there. The Sabre, it's great. It is a great ship. With almost every other ship in game, especially every other fighter, I should say, there's always a yeah but. The Super Hornet has a very friendly loadout system where you can customize your heart's content. You got a lot of hard points. It's supposed to be a more tanky ship in the long run. It can do gimbals very easily. The yeah but on the Super Hornet is you give up on speed and maneuverability. It's not a very fast ship. The regular Hornet, the yeah but is, well, it's lacking compared to its big brother, and it's also not very it has the same faults as the Super Hornet without having the bonuses of the extra armaments of the Super Hornet. The Gladius, a great ship, an awesome ship to fly, one of the ones I trumpet on this champion on my YouTube channel a lot. But the Gladius has some big holdups. The fact that it only has 3 hard points really limits what it can do. It is also lightly armored and doesn't have the best shields. The Arrow, very maneuverable, surprising amount of firepower, but again, it's relatively weak in terms of durability. There's that yeah but. Then you have the Buccaneer. Its yeah but is it's basically a paper plane out there flying around. It just gets destroyed without much trouble at all. The Sabre, there is a yeah but it's not a fault of the Sabre itself. The Sabre has, right up there with the light fighters in terms of speed and maneuverability, right up there with the medium fighters in terms of firepower. 4 size 3s, while it's only one more, the fact that it's, they're all the same size, they're all very nicely located and everything, it gives this ship a lot of robust options in terms of loadouts. You could do 4 scatter guns, you can do 4 repeaters, you could do 2 disruptor cannons in close and then 4 scatter guns on the wings. You could do auto cannons, and the thing is maneuverable enough that if you're a good enough pilot, you can use the auto cannons, or not even the auto cannons, just the heavy cannons, and you're going to be able to successfully land your shots on the target because the thing maneuvers that well, giving you a real high, single burst potential shot over and over. Those 4 size 3s, while it's not the best, I'm not going to say it's as much as a Super Hornet, it's not bad, right? It's still very good. It's in that upper echelon. Sure, the Glaive hits significantly harder. The yeah but for the Glaive is that one loadout is that the only loadout you get. It's also a $350, $325 ship. So that one's really expensive. So you have that. You have a lot of durability within your shields. Having 3 shield generators makes it a very durable shield. In fact, right now, the Sabre is the most durable of all the fighters, even over that of the Super Hornet by a notable amount. I recommend go to a website, hardpoint.io. So what this website is it pulls from like the database on the server, the client, I don't know, but basically it's pulling out their, I think it's called JARA files, I think, but it's where like the stats of the ships are located. And inside that, what you can see is actually the Sabre has 10,090 hit points. The Super Hornet only has 8,000. The Glaive has like 8,500, 8,600. I don't remember off the top of my head. So yeah, the Sabre actually has more hit points by like 21% over that of the Super Hornet. And then all the other ships just fall in line going down from there. There's a bit of a caveat explanation here we got to talk about, and that is the fact that currently within the current build of the game, 3.4.3, whatever our patch number is, there's no armor system implemented in game. At some point, there is going to be armor on ships, and we don't know exactly how it's going to work, if it's going to be when the projectile hits an armored section, that damage is reduced by 30%, 40%, 50%, or if it's going to be you have to wear through the armor and then you can actually start doing hit point damage. We don't really know how it's going to work yet, but the Super Hornet's supposed to be heavily armored. The fact that armor's not in the game yet means the numbers just aren't balanced. While the Super Hornet might only have 8,000 hit points, its effective hit points because of that armor should be higher than that. And in theory should be higher than the Sabre. But as things are today in 3.4, it's just not the case. The Sabre has more hit points and then more shields by like 33% more shields, making it the most tanky of the fighters currently in game. And yeah, that's kind of, it just makes for a very well-rounded great package. Now earlier I said there is sort of a yeah but when it comes to the Sabre, but it's not really the Sabre's fault. And that has to do with the fact that the Sabre is really a ship best flown with joystick, either dual stick or HOTAS. If you take the Sabre and you try to fly it, you can do it keyboard and mouse, especially if you run scatterguns. You run 4 scatterguns, similar to every other one, like even all the way down to the Aurora, where you can't gimbal the weapons if you just put 4 scatterguns on. While it's not the best, it's definitely doable on keyboard and mouse. The same thing with the Sabre. Keyboard and mouse, if you're running a bunch of scatterguns, it's doable. It's not the end of the world. But to get the most out of the Sabre, to get the most out of any ship, you really want to be running joystick on it. That way you don't have to gimbal. If you start gimbling down the Sabre and you take those 4 size 3s down to 4 size 2s, then it starts to feel very limited in its damage output. While 4 size 3s is acceptable, 4 size 2s for a medium fighter does not feel great. So that's kind of the thing. You kind of got to run joystick. And that's where the problem's not so much with the Sabre itself, but the game right now. Maybe this is only a Paler problem. Maybe this is only something I run into. But I find when I'm running my joystick, it's constantly trying to kill me. There seems to be an issue where, say, whenever you open and close the mobi-glass, it goes back to full throttle. Even if your throttle, your throttle's all the way down to 0, when you open and close the mobi-glass, it forgets where it was and it goes back to full throttle. So then you have to hit the throttle forward and bring it back down to 0 for it to clear back out. This becomes a problem whenever you're trying to land, to say rearm or repair or refuel, and you're on a landing pad. And if you forget to turn off your engine, you open your mobi-glass, you click refuel, you close your mobi-glass, and then your engines kick in and you fly into the space station in front of you and you die. Things like that happen. It also just gets a little wonky where right now the gameplay loop, I would say I spend less than 50% of the time, probably less than 20% of the time actually in a dogfight. Most of my time is spent opening the mobi-glass, plotting a route to different moon or whatever, closing the mobi-glass, aligning, jumping, open the contract manager, getting out, go into the trade and all that stuff. And because of this, for the most part, the HOTAS just gets in the way. The only time I sit down and actually just use my HOTAS is when I'm going to be doing Arena Commander. And for that reason, my Sabre actually only really gets pulled out when I'm doing Arena Commander. If I am just dorking around or whatever, I'm going to take either the Vanguard Warden or the Super Hornet out. just because both of those, they handle better on keyboard and mouse, and that makes them just easier for day-to-day use. And like I'm saying, there's not really a problem with the Sabre. And I think this would come down to like if I'm going to recommend the Sabre or not. Yes, I recommend the Sabre, but you have to compare it with the Super Hornet and then compare to what it is you plan to do within the game. If in the future your thought process is you're going to be the dogfighter for your organization or whatever, you're going to be flying escort duty, you're going to spend most of your time behind the stick, and you're going to be running dual joystick or a HOTAS setup, and you're willing to spend upwards, I want to say it's $170 for the Sabre. If you're willing to spend that much, there's really right now no better buy for that role. In the future, we don't know what may come online. You know, the glaive is definitely an option, but that's $350, I think, for the glaive. Whereas 170, while that's not cheap for a single role fighter ship, 350 is a whole hell of a lot more, almost double, what that is. If you're someone, though, that wants a good fighter, but you plan to do, like, your main role isn't going to be the dogfighting guy, at that point, the Super Hornet, I think, for $5 more at $175, I think, or $5 or $10 more, definitely becomes a lot more day-to-day usable. And that's kind of going to be my decision-making process, what it is you're looking for. There is the Lightning. So I want to say it's F-22 Lightning, but that might just because I was talking about the F-22 with this ship in regards, whatever the Lightning's designated is. This is the fighter that we've kind of seen, we know is coming at some point. It's going to be very limited within Star Citizen, but it's going to be part of Squadron 42. It's the guy with like 19,000 guns on it. I exaggerate a little bit, but we saw it at Citizen Con. It was on a pedestal, you could look at it. It had weapons everywhere. That ship's probably going to be the top dog fighter. We don't know if it's going to be available within Star Citizen. We don't know, if it's going to be purchasable and all that stuff. That's all kind of an unknown, so that's an extra variable out there we can't predict. But with what we know, what we see today, yeah, the Sabre is great. I really can't praise it enough. It's just an all-around awesome fighter, and I think with the rework in 3.5, with how the maneuverability changes are going to do and everything, I think it's only going to get better. I think the slight lead I'd probably give to it in terms of straight-up dogfighter over the Super Hornet is probably going to expand out even more so because of its better maneuverability and better turn rate and all that stuff. I think that pretty much summarizes it. The Sabre, I could go back and repeat it all. It's expensive. $170 for this roll of ship, that's a lot to invest. But if you are really into that dogfighting experience and you plan to invest money into a good HOTAS, or you already have a good HOTAS 2 joystick setup, you can't go wrong with this ship. It's just all around great. And as they improve stealth mechanics, it should become even better. Alright guys, so there you have it. That's the Aegis Sabre. Until next time, this has been Power. Thanks for watching.